Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission, which is a request for a call-in. Just going to run through a few admin bits first before we get started. So this is a meeting of the Council held in public. It's not a public meeting. There is no fire drill planned, but if the fire alarm sounds, please leave by the exit nearest the large screen at the front of the room. Proceed down the fire exit to the courtyard. Once it is safe to return, councillors will receive a text message. Officers will also advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. We are recording the meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the council's website following the meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. Now, for the benefit of members who... Oh yeah, do we have any? Well, we will have apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We have an apology from Councillor Ansell with Councillor Alex Harrison as substitute, an apology from Councillor Walter Brown with Councillor Murphy as substitute, an apology from Councillor Reid with Councillor Davies as substitute, and an apology from Councillor Baggett with Councillor Schrader as substitute. Thank you.
Thank you. So, an all-new committee. What's the next one? Yeah. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Schrader.
Thank you, Chairman. In relation to item 3, which is the call-in decision, I was a signatory to the call-in by Councillor Moore.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Cabinet Member for Housing and a member of Essex County Council.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Moore.
Well, as Councillor Smith said, he was Essex County Council, so am I.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, so item 3 then, calling of a decision. So yes, as I prematurely launched into a moment ago, just wanted to take us briefly through the process for those members who perhaps haven't done a meeting like this before. So there's been a call-in of a Cabinet member decision. At the end of this meeting, we will consider 2 options which will be available to us. One, the Commission will uphold the objection, refer the decision back to the Cabinet with its views, including views on any alternative proposal or specific views of the Commission. Or 2, that the Commission does not uphold the objection and the decision is then implemented with immediate effect. I just want to remind members that the Commission will concentrate on the objections raised and the evidence provided in support of these objections. Obviously that's primarily based on my discretion, but I would ask members try and sort of stick to the points that are raised in the objectors' presentation that's coming shortly after I finish speaking, rather than going off on tangents. Otherwise we'll be here all night. Just to give you an idea of the format of the meeting, first of all, Councillor Moore will give us the reasons for his objection to the decision. Normally it would be the Cabinet member who would respond to that, but the Cabinet member is not here tonight, so it will be Mr. Kay who will be responding on her behalf. After that, there's a maximum of 15 minutes each for those presentations, so be as brief as you care to be. There will then be an opportunity for the members of the Commission to ask any questions of the objector or indeed the officer in this case. And after that, we'll ask the officer to summarise their response, and then the objector, Councillor Moore, will have the opportunity to summarise their objection. After that point, I will ask each of you in turn to give me a brief summary of your thoughts, and at that point that will obviously give us a steer as to which of the 2 recommendations we will be taking back to the Cabinet member. Is that clear to anybody? Are there any questions at this stage? Good, excellent. In that case, without further ado, I shall move on and ask Councillor Moore to present the reasons for their objection, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you're aware, there was a newly published decision, P10725 CMDR Compliance Review of Saved Policies against the 2024 NPPF. The CMDR was published on March the 24th, 2025, and the accompanying compliance review was dated January 2025. Just to be clear, on page 4 of the original Cabinet member decision, on page 4, under the heading Background, it states, and I quote, "The position taken by the January 2025 compliance review will remain valid until either A, the Council adopts a new local plan, or B, the NPPF is updated by MHCLG. Based on this, our understanding is that the document before us is of a review that was conducted in January 2025. Although the new NPPF was published on December the 12th last year, Annex 1, paragraph 234 of the NPPF clearly states that, and I quote, "For the purposes of preparing local plans, the policies in this version of the framework will apply from March the 12th, 2025. In addition, the government published guidance on February the 19th on the natural environment and plan making. Advice on the role of the green belt in the planning system was published by MHCLG on February the 27th, and the supplementary agenda reason 2 states that this is correct. However, it misses the point that our understanding was that the compliance review was conducted in January 2025. The government also published guidance on February the 27th for the effective use of land and for housing and economic needs assessment. In summary, the MHCLG guidance on Greenbelt, natural environment, plan making, effective use of land and housing and economic needs assessments were all published after the January 2025 compliance review. Mr. Chairman, my concern is therefore that the decision notice was issued prematurely because the January 2025 compliance review was conducted before the 2024 NPPF came into full effect and before government guidance on various aspects of the new NPPF had been published, and therefore the decision notice and compliance review of saved policies may not reflect the government guidance on specific aspects of the new NPPF. Members need assurance that the compliance review of saved policies does in fact meet all the 2024 NPPF and associated guidance issues. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Just turn your mic off. Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Kay, did you want to respond to that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillors. There is a reference in the covering CMDR to January 2025, which was an error, and it was a drafting error and arose as the report was drafted, and that does not materially change any conclusions in the work which was completed and published in March 2025. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that. So that concludes that. Any comments from members of the committee? Anyone want to ask any questions? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I'll get us started, and happy St George's Day to everybody. So, I mean, what we're looking at here really is whether or not the decision that the cabinet made in January was legal and the correct decision. So I suppose the obvious first question to ask the officers is was the decision made legally, and also sort of did the content of the NPPF change at all in the time frame between it being passed and March 2025 when Councillor Moore is referring to.
Happy St George's Day, Councillor. Thank you. The reporting was all done in March, and so there was no change in between then. It was purely one reference in the CMDR said January, and that was a drafting error. It was all done in March, so there was no change between January and March.
Perfect, thanks. So yeah, that clears up the main issue from Councillor Moore's report. But yeah, I mean I was a little bit confused when I was reading this agenda, because on matters for consideration on page 8, it asks what consideration point number 1 is to ask the decision maker to reconsider their decision. But then on page 18, during the report that went to Cabinet, it said the options section says there is only one option. A new version of the MPF is now in place, or MPPF is now in place, and the council must reappraise its safe policies against the latest MPPF to ensure that the correct weighting is applied to local policies when applications are being determined. So, I mean, is the purpose of this call-in, I suppose, Councillor Moore maybe I'll answer this, is the purpose of this call-in to reconsider the decision to adopt the new MPPF, because surely that would then make this council put this council in an illegal position because we're not in line with the government policy.
Councillor Moore, did you want to come back on
that? It's really quite simple. The paper that we had, the decision letter, said that the position taken by the January 25 compliance review will remain valid until either the council adopts a new local plan or the MPPF is updated. So it was January. It was dated January. If you read the paper, you would have seen that. It's not dated March. The original decision letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other questions from the committee? Councillor Strana.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to bottom that out, really, don't we? If it's just a drafting issue, would the fact that the date that Councillor Moore is referring to is incorrect, would that open us up to any potential legal challenge on that basis? I mean, the thing is, when you're publishing these sorts of things, that is the kind of thing that may seem unimportant but can flummox the whole thing if you end up, someone decides to test it in court.
We do not believe that there is any legal challenge to that process. It was a drafting error on one element of it.
Okay, thanks. I mean, it's a fairly significant drafting error, isn't it? I mean, you're talking about, because obviously the reason we're here is because the objector, quite understandably, has looked at this and has basically seen it as a significant error in the process. So, I mean, clearly, if he, as the objector, has had an issue and has felt the need to bring it to our attention, then potentially other parties could do the same, could they not?
The reporting was in March, so everything it is part of in terms of documentation relates to March. It was drafted and created in March, so we don't have the ability to travel through time. So that is the beginning and the end of it. It was drafted in March.
But the document doesn't reflect that.
Yeah, there was a drafting error, and it stated January in error. because that was in the drafting process. And although it's been reviewed by many people, including our KC, and it has been legally reviewed, and unfortunately that was a grammatical error that crept through.
Councillor Palmer, sorry.
Deal without that. Can you confirm that the compliance review was supported by external legal advice, and how does this strengthen our position given the error?
Councillor, the compliance review, as it states in the documentation, the compliance review is a general advice to development management officers on weighting. It is not, development management officers are not bound by the conclusions, but this is a process that we have to go through. Compliance review. We have to do this to ensure that we are in line with national policy, and to not do so means that we would be opening ourselves up to significant legal challenge.
Councillor Strada.
Thank you, Chairman. The thing that does concern me about this, because when you look at the changes to some of the saved policies, a lot of them are around the greenbelt and the way that we're determining greenbelt applications. And there certainly is a very strong feeling among a lot of the residents that, so we had the new MPPF published that introduced this grey belt stuff. And then a lot of the guidance that was coming out, I mean, Councillor Moore will have more chapter and verse on this than I do, but the guidance that was then published by the government around the interpretation of grey belt, we were already determining applications on that basis before that had even come out. So the anxiety that residents have is that, you know, is the council really doing the due diligence on making sure that our policies are matched up with the MPPF? Because my reading, certainly of the 2024 MPPF, was that a lot of the grey belt designations were supposed to be sort of finessed through the local plan process, but instead we've been granting applications in the green belt because we've decided that they're grey belt. And I mean, I've had these conversations with officers, so they're well aware of my views on this, because I don't think that they're robust decisions. But this whole issue around, you know, when these reviews are carried out is important to bottom out, because I certainly have, I know other Billericay councillors have the same issue. I'm getting contacted by a lot of residents who think that these planning applications are being determined on the fly because we kind of decided to implement policy on the hoof when it was only just emerging from the new MPPF that was published. So I wouldn't be too confident that you won't be challenged on this stuff further down the line, because there are a lot of interested parties who are watching the decisions that we're making, and they're not particularly chuffed about them.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you want to come back on that point?
I was going to, but Christine was going wants to mention something.
Can I just deal with the? I mean, I'll let obviously Matthew deal with the more policy issues. In terms of the decision making that was made by the planning committee, and obviously the officer reports that were drafted for planning committee at the time when the changes to the MPPF occurred. If you go back and we haven't got the reports in front of us, the way the matter was dealt with in terms of the applications that came quite quickly after the MPPF, and we had to deal with it with the matters. What we're not allowed to do is just to miss out clear changes in direction of policy frameworks set up by national government because of the age of our local plan. If you go back to the reports that were drafted at that time and the reports that came to planning committee, the balance was undertaken on twofold. Firstly, using the normal balance that we undertaken to the green belt, and that was looking at the inappropriateness of the development and balancing that against the improvements that could be brought. So we had a balanced argument against the impact to the greenbelt and obviously the infrastructure and everything that would create the balance. And then also we balanced it against the challenges of paragraph 156 of the NPPF, which obviously set out the requirements for the golden rule. So nowhere in those and those reports were checked by Council. So those reports gave members a clear steer in terms of they could. It was very clear that the reports spoke about the new NPPF, but also those reports also spoke about Greenbelt in general terms and inappropriateness and the balanced decision making. So I'd make it very clear that at no point in time were the planning committee misdirected by planning officers, and also at no point in time were members given a position where they had to make a decision which they were uncomfortable with, and that was made very clearly at the time that matter came to the planning committee.
I was going to ask the Chair if it was appropriate to you raise wider issues outside those in the objections, because it appeared that the question was raising wider issues than those set out in the objections, and I was just looking at the process for this calling for a cabinet decision, so I didn't know whether it was relevant to continue with it.
Yeah, I think it's relevant. Clearly, it ties directly into if we're taking decisions around planning and cabinet members are making decisions, then I don't think it's unreasonable for members to bring forth residents' concerns. Ultimately, we are here to reflect those concerns, whether this is a call-in or any other kind of public meeting. So I'm happy for us to engage with that point as long as it doesn't become the main thrust of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just draw attention to one of the notes in the paperwork. The most significant change in the 2024 NPPF is the introduction of grey belt designation. That was by central government in December 2024. And while it has generated significant interest nationally, the Council is obliged to reflect this policy accurately within its advisory documents. And the concerns regarding Greenbelt expressed by call-in members are noted. But this is a national policy change which must be reflected in the compliance review, and it cannot be set aside as a local level.
And thank you for that. And I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Murphy, but just as an aside for Councillor Moore, my understanding is, Councillor Moore, you're not necessarily questioning the decision, more the timing of the decision based on the information that was given to you, which said that that it's from January, which now apparently is wrong. Is that an accurate reflection of your position?
Yes, it is. So we had a compliance review that was published as part of the paper, and it was dated January. So in January, we were making decisions in this council on planning applications with Greenbelt and Greybelt. The Greenbelt advice from whatever it's called, MHCLG, was at the end of February. So we were making decisions in this council, planning application decisions. We hadn't even had the advice from MHCLG at that point. So although I hear that we've engaged KC to look at it and so on, but they wouldn't have had the advice either. So I worry that we didn't have a robust process in this.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murphy.
So the first point is the date was a mistake. Well, I think we've agreed that, and it's unfortunate. Would it be a fair comment to say that everybody was probably looking at the guts of it rather than the peripheral bits, and therefore that's why the mistake was made? And my second question whilst I'm here is the NPPF. We all understand it's issued at some stage by the government as a whole thing, perhaps. but how much drifts into the view of councils before it's officially issued? Do we get, is there consultations with the councils? Is there consultations with Essex County Council? Is there consultations with everybody? And everybody knows that's the way it's going to go, even though it's not written in stone at a particular time? Or do we have to specifically wait? From my understanding of reading this, the fallback position is the plan that's in position at that particular time. And would this have affected it in any way due to the difference in dates? Not the specific date of the 13th of January, 12th of January, because I think that's purely an error. An error shouldn't occur. But as I said, I think most people were looking probably at the guts of it rather than the peripheral bits. Sorry.
Councillor, thank you for your questions. The MPPF was published on the 12th of December, and it came into force immediately for decision-making purposes. So the plan-making content came in on the 12th of March. So we had to start dealing with it for plan-making purposes on the 12th of March 2025. And the content between December and March did not change. So it went live, and we all told about it on the 12th of December. Before that, there was a draft which said that they were going to do something about this, but the concept didn't really of grey belt was not there, for example. It is only come into force on the 12th of December, basically. But there was a draft in the summer, but it was a lot more vague, or is a lot more initial. So it came into force for everybody across the country on the 12th of December. It was dropped essentially, and that becomes live. And I do apologise, Councillor Murphy. Could you repeat the first question? Because I know you said you had two questions. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But
Basically, yeah. I mean, if this report had said the 12th of March instead of 12th of January, is that right? Yeah. We wouldn't be sitting here, would we? No. Right, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? So, just so I'm clear in my head why I'm sat here tonight, are you saying it's basically a cock up over a date? Is that the summary of it?
Yes, Chair. In so few words, yes.
So, I'm just leaving aside the politics around the green belt and the grey belt and all the rest of it. We know that it's likely that at some stage the grey belt is likely to be challenged in the High Court. We know that there is obviously an issue with the process that we followed. Given that the absolute worst thing this committee can do is to effectively ask the cabinet member to reconsider the decision, at which point they could simply reconsider the decision with the correct dates, implement the correct dates, and then the process would be completely robust, and we wouldn't have this error that has been pointed out by the objector. Is there a case to simply take this back to the cabinet, in your view, as an officer? Is there a case to take this back to the cabinet member, ask them to correct the mistake, and then reissue the decision?
Yeah, there is. That is a possibility. Yeah.
Okay, so that potentially is an option open to the committee because I don't think anybody is suggesting, and Councillor Moore can correct me if he feels differently, but I don't think anyone's suggesting that this council is not going to implement the MPPF. That would be clearly absurd. But what we have got the opportunity to do, that it is an error, it has been picked up, it will be picked up by other people. We know that this is a process that will be analysed and looked at, and people will come up with all kinds of different theories about what's going on and what people's motivations are and all the rest of it. And if we're in a position where the process has got such a glaring fault with it, and we've got the opportunity to correct it, I certainly would think that would make some sense to do so. But it's obviously a decision for this committee. Are there any other questions from committee members? Okay. In that case, I will ask the officer, Mr. Kay, to sum up, please.
Thank you, Chair. In summary, the MPPF was published in December 2024. It came into force immediately for decision-making purposes. In terms of the reporting, there was a reference in CMDR to January 2025, which was an error and arose as the report was drafted. And it doesn't materially change any of the conclusions of the work which was completed and published in March 2025. I think that may cover it. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Councillor Moore. Did you want to sum up your position, please?
I've got too many lights on my thing here. Okay. Yeah, I accept what officers have said. Nevertheless, the documentation still has January 2025. So I think your proposal that is taken back and reissued is probably the safest route to avoid any confusion in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, so as I said before, I'm now going to ask each member in turn to sort of give their sort of views with reference to the two options. So the first is that we uphold the objection and refer the decision back to Cabinet. So I would imagine if we're going to, if and I don't know if you are, if we were minded, we would simply be saying to the Cabinet member that they need to reissue the decision with the correct date. That would be the view. Or the second would be that the Commission does not uphold the objection. So if I can ask you, please, to speak to whichever one of those you think is the correct course of action. I'll start with you, Councillor Murphy.
It's very similar to me because it's a legal requirement to follow the NPPF. The date being wrong, the date's wrong, but the fundamental planning and everything has been done legally, and it doesn't matter if it's got the 12th of January or the 12th, 1846 or anything on it, does it? If the Cabinet member's so minded, just reissue it. But I think it's a mistake. We all go through lives making little mistakes. They shouldn't happen, but obviously they were working on, as I say, the guts of it, the important stuff that was legal rather than the peripheral. Thank you.
So just so I'm clear, which of the two are you suggesting that, because you did mention that you thought they should go back to the Cabinet member, are you saying one or two?
I think it was two. We should just vote and just carry on.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't disagree with Councillor Murphy in the sense that it will not appear to be a massive deal to the average person on the Clapham omnibus. However, these are the legal processes and procedures of this authority. And I'm sorry, Mr. Kay, thought I was delving into that particular area of the changes to the NPPF, but the reason I do so is to kind of underscore the fact that this is not an uncontroversial document, the 2024 NPPF, And actually, this council's decisions since that was implemented have made news coverage in the national press because of the way that this council has implemented grey belt policy quite early in the introduction of that policy in the 2024 MPPF, and all the controversy that arrives from that. And as Councillor Moore outlined, that the fact does remain that we were making decisions on grey belt policy after the MPPF had been introduced, but before the guidance was issued and the compliance review was undertaken. So I think we need to be very alive to the possibility of challenge. And I think that it behooves this council to dot the I's and cross the T's. As you've said, Chairman, nobody in the opposition or any other member of this council is suggesting that this council should not be compliant with the MPPF, because clearly we have to be. I think I would simply stress to members that it is in the interests of all elected members of this council that this council is fully legally compliant. This is, as has been said, and I agree with Councillor Murphy, this is a fairly minor error on a document that we have it within our power to correct. And given the controversial nature of the 2024 MPPF, I think it would be silly not to take the opportunity to correct it and remove any potential issues that it may generate for the council in future years, potentially. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And just so I'm clear then, from what you've said, you would prefer option 1 in your case?
Yes, I think we should refer it back to the Cabinet member.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. As we discovered, this is a simple drafting error. Unfortunate, but it is a drafting error. I don't feel there's any urgent need to correct that. An erratum note could be issued at the bottom of the current report if necessary, but I don't feel like that it needs to be referred back to the Cabinet member for any further discussion, and I have faith in the officers that they've upheld this legally and compliantly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'm taking that to vote for option 2. Okay, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with what we've read, what we've heard tonight. That due diligence has taken place and we are compliant with the terms of the MPPF. So on that note, I think as Councillor Davis says, it just needs an amendment to it, but we should actually reject the complaint.
Thank you, Councillor. So that is a clear preference for option 2. Just before I bring Councillor Harrison in then, is there, what is the process? Is there a process whereby we can amend the report to reflect the correct date? Yeah, I mean, so I think the answer to that is no, and that's why I'm asking, because 2 councillors have suggested that tonight. It seems to be a perfectly reasonable suggestion, but it's not. That the only way I can see that you can possibly implement that is by referring it back to the Cabinet member. So, in some ways, I think if I may say, I think the position is illogical to say that you want to reject the option that you've both said you want, but obviously it's entirely up to you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, the officers quite clearly said that, you know, that this decision's been looked over by legal advice, by the including the council's KC. It was an honest mistake in the report that's been acknowledged. I do wonder if we were to go with option 1, sort of what the timeline for that would be. For example, would the Cabinet member be able to come in to the council tomorrow morning, type the new date in, and click send, and that will be it? Or will this be an issue that would have to drag on, sort of, you know, bearing in mind that sort of, yeah, this isn't something that I feel needs to drag on, considering it's changing 2 words in a document. So, I mean, what is the timeline and process for actually changing this very minor thing?
Can you answer that, Mr. Kay, or one of you?
I mean, so the point is that it's very clear that the date in the document that was drafted had an error. We put the wrong month against the right year, and based on that, the decision that was taken, the information given to the relevant portfolio holder was technically correct, apart from the fact that it had one incorrect date in it. Does that change the information that the portfolio holder was given? It doesn't. All it does is it's just that the marginal information at the end. I mean, I would suggest that minor amendment could be made. You've got sitting alongside that this event that occurred that would then protect the council going forward. That this matter was aired at a Scrutiny Commission meeting where it was decided that it was of little impact to the decision that was made by that said portfolio holder, and therefore the position that has been taken that that you can do one of two things. You could amend the error in the document, or you could leave the document as it is, but sit alongside the document in that CMDR the outputs from today, which basically said that members made the decision that subject to members making the decision that it was accepted as an error, and therefore the signing of the CMDR by the relevant portfolio holder would not have any impact on the decision that was made. That's a long way of saying that. Sorry.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm satisfied with that. So yeah, that would be option 2 for me. As you know, this evening has clearly cleared up any confusion.
So that I'm clear, then, what some members are suggesting is we don't uphold the objection, but we do agree with the point that the date being wrong does need to be addressed. Is that, broadly speaking, the position that we're taking? Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, Chair. If I can just amend that slightly. Yeah, we don't uphold the call-in sort of request, but we do acknowledge there was a acknowledge.
I sympathise. Continue, please.
Acknowledge there was a minor mistake in the report, and acknowledge that the correct date was the 12th of March.
Right, thank you very much. So the position that some councillors are taking is that they don't uphold the objection, but that they want. Is that clear to you in terms of what you want recorded in the minutes?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I mean, for what it's worth, which is not a great deal, because clearly you've got the numbers, but I think that it would be simpler in many ways to have gone with option 1, but I appreciate that the politics of it mean that perhaps you can't be seen to overturn a cabinet member's decision. But to be fair, we're not talking about overturning any decisions. We're just talking about tidying up what I actually think is a fairly egregious error. If it's been spotted by Councillor Moore, then it will be spotted by others. I'm surprised it wasn't spotted during the process, because this document must have gone through. Well, the officer made it clear this document went through a series of hands. So it's really unfortunate that we've had it, because I mean, obviously, if that error hadn't been made, we wouldn't be sat here tonight, and we would have all been able to watch the build up to the Arsenal game. But it is what it is. Do I need to take a vote, or are we clear about where we are at?
Yeah, you've got steers, so we need to take a vote on the
second one. On the second one. Yeah. So we're going to take a vote that all those in favour of the second option, which is that the Commission does not uphold the objection, subject to the points in the minutes that have been discussed. Yeah. Subject to agree. The Commission does not uphold the objection. All those in favour of that, please raise your hands. That's 4. And those who are opposed to that position, raise your hands. That's 2. Okay, that's everything, isn't it? Yep. Right, that's it. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight. Thank you. Enjoy your evening. Good night.